OverDress demo event. Now, before we start showing off what the demo event is, we have some little prizes for you. We have this Vanguard lanyard, which as you can see is very nice, very exclusive, sent to us by Bushroad. And we have some OverDress stickers to hand out as well. So if you want a sheet of stickers and you want the little lanyard, all you have to do is be the first person to answer this question. Which card did Aichi first receive from Kai? Congratulations, Silver Skygazer! It is indeed Blaster Blade. Well done. You have earned yourself some nice free gifts. We will be doing another question after we look through the cards and explain what everything does. And then we'll be doing one last question after we play a little game. Yes, hello Lewis, welcome. So, this is our demo deck, which was supposed to arrive sometime before now, but due to the current conditions of the world, it's arrived a little bit late, but we have it now. So, this is our demo event. Our demo event deck is called Dragon Empire. So, as you can see, the cards consist of various different parts. Up here is the grade. So this one is a grade 3. That means he's quite powerful. These are little effects. We'll explain them in a minute. This is its attack, and this is how much critical it has. So all of this will be explained as we play through the game. But let us go through what the different cards are. So first of all, you have grade 3s, you have grade 2s, you have grade 1s, and you have grade 0s. Now, some grade 0s have this little bit in the top corner, which are called triggers. Now, the triggers you can see over here on your little playmat, they come in 5 different forms. A critical trigger will give 10,000 power to any unit on your field that you choose, and it will increase your critical by 1. What critical does is it increases the damage that the opponent will take. The way to win this game is if you put your opponent to 6 damage, which you can see down here. Once they go to 6 damage, you win the game. You also have a draw trigger, which allows you to draw. A front trigger gives plus 10,000 to your entire front row. And lastly, second last, you have the heal trigger, which recovers a point of damage so long as you have equal or more damage than the opponent does. The over trigger is the brand new trigger, which is brand new to OverDress, and that gives, instead of 10,000 power, 100 million power. And when it's revealed, you draw a card, and this card gets removed from play. So if you're taking it as damage, it gets removed from play and doesn't go into your damage as well, which is very, very nice. We'll be explaining all of this as we go along. Another relatively new addition to Vanguard recently is order cards, which act kind of like spell cards in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which they don't act as monsters, they don't stay around, and they don't have any attack value. Some order cards will stay in the field and they are continuous effects, but a lot of order cards, you just activate it and then it goes into your drop zone, which is the name of your graveyard in this game. So, let us explain the basics of Vanguard first and foremost. I'm looking for my starting card. So, you start off with a Vanguard that is grade 0 that sits on your field. What you want to do is, whatever's on your Vanguard circle, you can only call that grade. So when you're in grade 0, you can call any grade 0s to any of these rear guards, but you can't call anything that's grade 1 or higher, but you can call anything to your Guardian circle to defend with, and we'll explain that a little bit later as well. Each turn, you're allowed to raid a grade 1 from your hand or from your raid deck, which we'll explain that in a bit. So each turn, you raid another card, and the whole idea is you want to level yourself up until you get to your current highest level, which is grade 3 in OverDress. In previous Vanguards, there have been other higher levels, but at the moment for OverDress, it is grade 3. And then you can really get to work. Now, there's all of these unique skills and abilities, which are all written at the bottom of the card, which we'll explain some of those, but they're quite simple to follow. you just pick them up and read the card as you go along. Also, cards have a defense value, but we'll be explaining that and how defense works and how guarding works as we go through our little game. So, the first thing to do in setting up your deck is you need 4 cards for your raid deck. You choose a grade 0. And the way that this works is when you start your phase, you can discard a card from your hand to raid a card from your raid deck, with the exception of the grade 0, which is what starts. So the way that it works is your 4 cards on your raid deck will go face down over here. And if you're using sleeves, then you put these 4 cards in separate sleeves from the rest of your deck. Now, in order to fill up your deck, you need 16 what's called trigger cards. And the triggers are the ones with little icons at the top. Use 4 heal triggers. But with the exception of that, you can play as many different variants of triggers as you want. Remember that you can only play 4 of a card. 4 is the maximum that you are allowed to play. And then, once you've set up your 16 triggers and your 4 cards in your raid deck, you can then fill the rest of your deck with whatever you think is the best strategy to help. I do recommend using what's called 4 sentinels, and we'll get into this later, but although these have 0 as their defense, they have a special effect where when they're placed on guardian circle, so it doesn't matter how powerful your opponent's attack is, the attack will not go through. So let us take our cards, you take them all, put them together, and then you give them a shuffle, and that starts your ability to actually play the game. And then we will go have a little entertaining game where we'll explain how everything goes. And while I'm shuffling, I will give out the next question, which will give one of you out there another prize, another special prize. So if you've already won a prize already, please don't answer. We don't want to go giving people the same prizes. So this is for everyone else out there. And the question is, which card is the avatar of Ren Suzugamori, one of the original villains of Cardfight Vanguard? What card was his avatar? It was indeed Blaster Dark. Congratulations, Lewis M. You have won yourself a very, very nice prize. So you give yourself a little shuffle, just exactly the same on the opposite field. So you give the deck a good shuffle. Normally you would shuffle the opponent's deck, but of course we are in the middle of the COVID restrictions, which prevents us from doing this. I'll just very quickly show Lewis what he's won. So Lewis, you have won this very lovely Vanguard lanyard, and you've also won this set of stickers for brand new OverDress, which I think would look very nice on a deck box, or a few deck boxes, depending on what decks you want to play. So, in order to start Vanguard, first of all, you take your size 0 and you keep it face down on the field. This prevents your opponent knowing what deck it is that you're actually playing. Then you draw your top 5 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have what's called a mulligan, where you're allowed to put as many cards as you want back on the bottom of your deck and draw the same number, but you're going to take 4 of these cards and put these 4 on the bottom of my deck.
Alright, mulligan 1.
And Robert is only putting back 1. And then I draw an additional 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there we are. And as you can see, I've got a variety of different cards in my hand, which we'll explain all their uses. So yes, here we have the cards in hand. As you can see, we have different grades as well. So we then decide who goes first. We'll just decide for me to go first for the sake of this demo event. And when you start up your game, you both say, stand up,
Stand up.
Vanguard.
Vanguard.
And you can see that we are both playing the demo deck and we're both playing Dragon Empire. So you to either raid a card in hand, or you can discard one and raid one from your raid deck instead. So we are going to discard this grade 3 card, and it goes over here to the drop zone. And then we take the next grade up from our grade, which is grade 0, which is the grade 1, and we raid this as our Vanguard. Now, our Vanguard has this effect on here, which says, when this is rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. So obviously I went first, so there's no effect. And then you can't declare an attack on your first turn. So at that point, I then say I end my turn, and it lets Robert take his turn.
Proper turn. I shall discard this draw trigger in order to raid from my raid deck. Right. My Vanguard skill activates, I draw an additional card.
So because Robert went second, he does get to draw the card, because he met the requirements of his card.
Vanguard declares an attack against your Vanguard. Her skill activates, she gains 2k power, so that is 10,000 power to your 8k.
Yes, so what this means is her effect is when she declares an attack, it says it on it, on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, that's what the V and the R means. It says during the battle that this unit attacked, this unit gets plus 2,000, so it's now 10,000 power. So what I can do is I can guard with these cards in hand, but I need to take 6 damage in order to lose the game, and at the moment I would not mind having some face-up damage so that I can use more powerful effects later on. So I'm going to declare no guard and take this damage.
Drive trigger check.
And the way that it works when you declare an attack is Robert looks at the top card of his deck and reveals it, and we both see that it has no trigger, and then it gets added to his hand, but if it did have a trigger, then it would have an additional effect. So now that the attack has went through and I've taken 1 damage, I then do a damage check. So I reveal the top card, which is a critical trigger, which increases the critical of my Vanguard by 1 and increases her power by 10,000 until the end of this turn. Which, now Robert's attack is finished and he has no cards left to attack with, ends his turn.
Pass.
So you start each turn by drawing a card. That's the first thing that happens in each turn. And you'll see that some cards have different defense. That's because they have different effects, different skills that, like some cards are less powerful on the field, but more defensive and more powerful in your hand, which is where a lot of tactics come in, as to what card you want to discard in order to ride. So, I think we will discard this grade 1 in order to raid from our raid deck this grade 2. Now there's some skills that come into play here. So as you can see here on my grade 1, with camera focus, there we go. When this unit is rode upon, which is when you raid, by Blaze Maiden Rare You, search your deck for up to 1 Trickstar. So this is Blaze Maiden Rare You. So we raid that, and then we use the effect of this to search my deck for up to 1 Trickstar, and call it to Rearguard, and then shuffle my deck. So we then pick up the deck, search it, we find 1 card named Trickstar. There he is. And we call that to Rearguard Circle. Then you give the deck a quick little shuffle. So I'm going to keep my Trickstar here in the back row. So Robert can only attack the front row, and I can only attack his front row. And things in the back row, they're generally protected unless effects state that they can target or attack or retire the back row cards. So with that done, I think I am then going to call this grade 2 here. Declare an attack with the Vanguard. So this, when she declares an attack, gets plus 2,000 power. So this is 12,000 power to the opponent's Vanguard.
No guard.
Okay, so drive check. It was no trigger, but it gets added to my hand. And Robert then takes 1 damage.
Check. No trigger.
And now, because I have a rear guard, I can declare an additional attack. So this will attack for 12,000, but because this is in the back row and it's a grade 1 or grade 0 that has this boost icon, that means that by turning this card to the side as well, I get to increase this rear guard's power by the back row rear guard, which means that this is 1,200 plus 5,000, which is 17,000 to the opponent's Vanguard. But because this is a rear guard, it doesn't drive check.
Damage trigger. Check.
And now Robert has taken 2 damage, and I'm only on 1, and my attacks are finished. So that ends my turn.
Stand. And I draw. I will discard the draw trigger to raid from my right deck. Effect when she's ruled upon by. There is my Trickstar, and I too shall call Trickstar to the back row.
And then, of course, whenever you look through your deck, you have to give it a good shuffle.
I shall call another Ryu, and another Ryu.
Ah, so now there is 3 rear guards on the opponent's front row, meaning that Robert will get 3 attacks this turn.
Enter battle phase.
Okay.
Ryu attacks. She gains 2k when she attacks, so this will be 12k.
A rear guard attacks a rear guard. Instead of taking damage, the rear guard instead gets destroyed. Now I've got the option to guard this card, but I'm choosing not to, and I'll just let my rear guard get destroyed, and that doesn't take any damage.
Skill. Again, which get as an attack. Plus 2k, so that'll be 12,000 to your Vanguard.
Okay, I'm going to no guard this attack.
Drive trigger, check, heal trigger.
Ah, so
10,000 power.
because Robert got a heal trigger and he has more damage than me, he gets to take 1 card from his damage zone and safer for longer. And also he gets the additional effect of giving plus 10,000 power to a rear guard. So he's given it to his, well, to any card. So he's given it to this rear guard over here, which now has 20,000 power. And because the attack hit, I take a damage. So damage trigger check, no trigger. And Verena goes into my damage zone.
With a boost, Ryu attacks. She gains 2,000 power for her own skill, so that would be 27,000 power to the Vanguard.
So 27,000 to my 10,000. That means that I would need 20,000 defense in order to keep my Vanguard protected. So as you can see, I don't have any cards that have 20,000 defense. And I don't want to discard more than 1 card because I have 5 cards in hand and I don't really want to go discarding any. So I'm going to choose to take this damage and go to 3 damage. So damage trigger, check. It's again no trigger, which goes over here. Then that ends Robert's turn. So you start by standing the Vanguard and all rear guards, and then you draw a card at the start of the turn. And then you can choose to discard 1 to raid from your raid deck. So I am going to discard this front trigger to raid my grade 3 Nirvana. And once again, the grade 2 has a skill which says, when this is rode upon by Chakrabithi, Divine Dragon Nirvana, I Soul Blast 1, search my deck for up to 1 deck. So what Soul Blast means is Soul are all the cards that are underneath your Vanguard. So in order to Soul Blast, you just take one of the cards that's underneath your Vanguard and you blast that into the drop zone. And then that allows the skill to activate. So I search my deck for one card with the name of Arena. And there he is, there's Verena. You show it to the opponent to let them see that you are indeed adding Verena and not just any card. That gets added to your hand. And once again, you give the deck a good shuffle because for your deck after you go through it. Unless there's something that states that you don't shuffle the deck, such as if it's look at the top 5 cards of your deck, then you don't shuffle your deck after that. But that is a completely different skill for a completely different deck. And this sits here. So, I am now going to call another Trickstar, which is this OverDress skill from Verena here. So if we look at it, it says OverDress Trickstar, and it says you may place it by stacking it on the specified unit instead of normal calling it to rearguard. And he has a skill that says on rearguard circle, when this unit is in OverDress state, and he attacks a Vanguard, he gets plus 10,000 power until the end of that battle. Then you can Soul Blast 2 to choose an opponent's rearguard and retire it. So I'm going to place this on top of Trickstar over here. And we are going to move this Trickstar up. We're going to do the... That's John just coming into the chat saying OverDress. And we're going to use the Trickstar or the OverDress ability here for Trickstar once again and call him over to this side, which means we have some very, very nice and very strong little rear guards. And I think that is going to be all I want to do in my main phase. I have 3 cards left in my hand. And we shall attack for 13,000 to the opponent's Vanguard, who has 10,000 attack.
No guard.
Okay, so Robert has chosen to not use any cards to guard. And because this is a grade 3, it has this additional ability up here, which is Twin Drive. And what Twin Drive means is that I get to drive check 2 cards instead of the usual 1. Now, Robert also had the option here because he has these grade 2s. Grade 2s have this little symbol up here, which means intercept, which means that if you are being attacked, you can have the grade 2 jump in front of a card, and then his 5,000 defense will get added to the card that's being attacked. Oh, and when this card... So, we'll use the effect of this as well. So this is when this card declares an attack, when this unit attacks. You counterblast. So what counterblast means is you take one of your face-up damage and you turn it face down. So this is why you want to take damage, because it allows you to get extra stronger effects that you wouldn't have access to if you didn't take damage. So all 3 units now get plus 10,000 power as well. So this is now 23,000 to the opponent's Vanguard. And we do the Twin Drive. So the first check, it has no trigger, gets added to hand. And the second check is a heal trigger. So because it's a heal trigger, I get to give plus 10,000 power to one of my units. So we'll put the 10,000 power over here, which now means that this has 30,000 power. And because I have more damage than my opponent, I get to heal 1, which means that I can take the face down damage that I just used and heal it, allowing me to use Counterblast later on as well.
Damage trigger, check, heal trigger.
So because Robert only has 1 damage and I have 2, it means that he doesn't get to heal, but he still gets to give the plus 10,000 power to one of his units.
To the Vanguard.
Okay, so we will now attack with Verena, who has 20,000 power, but by his own skill, when he declares an attack to the opponent's Vanguard, he gets plus 10,000 power as well, so it's now 30,000 power.
I shall go for 15 to put myself on 35.
So because Robert's on 20,000, the 15,000 increases his defense to 35, which is enough to guard my 30,000 attack. Let me just see here. So then at the end of the battle, I can choose to Soul Blast 2 to choose one of my opponent's rearguards and retire it. So we have 2 cards in Soul. So let's use that effect now. So we will Soul Blast 2 cards. And then we will retire this card over here. And now this card on the right has plus 10,000 from the heal trigger skill, and also 10,000 from Verena's skill, and he'll also get plus 10,000 from his own skill, so this is now 40,000 attack to the opponent's Vanguard.
No card.
And that will then end my turn.
Stand, and I draw.
So now you can see the damage has changed. It is now 2 damage to Robert's 3 damage.
Discarding this grade 1 to ride into my grade 3. Activating skill of rear. Soul Blast 1. Sure. I shall call this Trickster to the front row, and then by using Verena's OverDress, turn into this. And we shot into the battle phase, so my Nirvana will attack your Nirvana, activating his skill to counter blast 1 to give himself 10k and Verena 10k.
Okay, so now at this point I have to look at my hand and decide, do I want to try and guard this, or should I just allow this to pass? So I'm only on 2 damage at the moment, which means that I still have 4 damage that I can wait until I lose. But if he hits a critical trigger, then that will put me on more damage. But for the moment, I choose to no guard this attack and keep my cards in hand.
Okay, checking the twin drive. First check, no trigger. Second check, no trigger.
Okay, so I take 1 damage, so damage trigger, check. It's critical trigger. So, and now I have a decision that I can either put the 10,000 on my Vanguard or give the 10,000 to one of my rear guards instead. And I think I'm going to put the 10,000 on my Vanguard to make my Vanguard 23,000.
Okay. Nirvana attacks, so he's 20,000, but for his own skill he gains an additional 10k, so that is 30,000 to your 23.
Which means that I would need 20,000 to guard this attack. And I'm on 3 damage.
On 10, you're 23, I'm 30.
Oh yes, right. Okay. Yes, because I get the 10,000 defense boost from the trigger. I'm going to guard this with 15,000, which puts my unit's attack to 38. 38?
Yes.
Which is more than enough to guard this attack. So the 15,000 goes here into the Guardian Circle to let the opponent do the calculations, and then after it's used as a Guardian Circle, it gets used and put into the drop zone.
I shall use Verena's effect to Soul Blast the 2 to retire that Verena there.
Okay, And when Verena is retired, the Trickstar underneath it also gets retired, and both cards go into the drop zone.
And with a boost, raise effect activates, giving ourselves 2k, so this will be 17,000 to your other.
1,000, putting my Verena to 25,000. Then that goes over here.
I shall end my turn.
Okay, so now we stand and draw for turn. And we are going to raid the Verena. So because Verena has this skill up here in the top right, which I'll try and show you, that says Persona Raid. What that means is a skill which all cards get in OverDress, that if you have a Persona Raid skill and you raid on top of the same card, then first of all, for this turn, your front row will get plus 10,000 for the turn. So even if I call things here later, it'll still get plus 10,000, and I get to draw a card as well. Let's just take a quick look through my drop zone here. Okay, I'm going to use Nirvana's skill to discard a card from my hand to call a grade 0 from my drop zone. And I can do that once per turn. That's why it has this little symbol here that says once per turn on it. So discard a card from your hand, choose a grade 0 from your drop zone, and call it to your guard circle. So I've chosen Trickstar, and I'm going to call him here to the back row. And then I'm going to call this grade 1 to the front row over here. And yes, I think that is good enough. So Nirvana is now going to declare an attack against the opponent's Vanguard. And of course, when it declares an attack, I'm going to counterblast 1. And himself and all units in Overdress, which are these two, both get plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn. So this is now 23,000 to the opponent's Vanguard.
33, because it's
33.
No card.
Yes, because it's got the 10,000 power from the Persona Raid as well. The second check is a draw trigger. So it allows me to give plus 10,000 to one unit. I'll give the plus 10,000 to this unit. And I also get to draw a card. Now the card drawn doesn't get a drive, it just gets added to your hand.
Check front trigger, 10,000 power to my front row.
Okay. And now Nirvana or Verena will declare an attack against the opponent's Vanguard. So he gets plus 10,000 power from Nirvana's skill. He also gets plus 10,000 power from the Persona Raid, and he gets plus 10,000 power from his own skill. So he is now 40,000 attack to the opponent's 23,000 attack.
Card for 20, which puts me on 43.
Yes, so because Robert is 23,000 already, plus 15 and plus 5 is another 20,000, which puts him to 43, which is 3,000 enough just to defend against this attack. So both of those cards then go into the drop zone. And how many cards do you have in hand, Robert?
I have 4.
I have 5. So as you can see, I have a bit of card advantage here. So this unit over here has plus 10,000 from the Persona Ride. It also has plus 10,000 from the draw trigger, and it gets plus 2,000 by its own skill. So this is going to be 35,000 when it attacks, which means that if I attack the opponent's Vanguard, they would need 15,000 guard, but if I attack the opponent's rearguard, then they would need 20,000 to guard, which is a little bit more. So I am going to declare an attack for 35,000 to the opponent's Verena.
I shall place this into, and by paying its cost, Verena cannot be hit.
So this is the Perfect Guard, which has the effect, it obviously has 0 defense as you can see, but it has the skill that when it is placed on the Guardian Circle, you can discard a card from your hand, choose a unit, and for that battle, that unit cannot be hit, which prevents Verena being destroyed. And then that goes into the drop zone. And then Robert only had 2 at the end of his turn. Robert was on 4 damage and I'm on 3. But this is now Robert's turn.
And we shall ride Nirvana into Nirvana. Persona skill, 10k to front row, and I draw 1. We shall switch Trickstar with Ryu, and we shall evolve this Trickstar into a second Verena.
Yes.
So 23,000 Vanguard skill, counter blasting 1, 10k, 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 33,000 Vanguard.
I'll choose to no guard this attack.
First check.
No trigger.
Second check.
Also no trigger. So I take 1 damage. Damage trigger? Check. It's a front trigger, which gives plus 10,000 to each of my front row rearguards.
And this would be 30,000 to the Vanguard.
How many cards do you have in Soul? Just 1?
Just 1.
Okay, so that means that you can't use the skill of Verena. So this is 30,000 to my 23,000, which means I need 10,000 to guard. But I'm on 4 damage, so I can afford to take 1 more damage. But do I want to is the question. The answer is no, not really. But I have plans for these in hand, because these cards I can call and use next turn. So I'm going to choose to take this 1 damage. It is a Verena, or a Nirvana even, which would have been very helpful. I would prefer that in my hand than in my damage zone, which now puts me to 5 damage, and if I take 1 more damage, then I lose the game.
And this would be 30,000 to 23,000.
So once again, I need 10,000 to guard. And this time, I feel like I will guard for these 2 5Ks, which will now put me to 33,000.
Pass.
Okay, it is now my turn. So I, first of all, stand each of my units. And then draw for turn. This order card is grade 2, which means that this order card can only be played when I'm in grade 2 or higher, and it goes here into the order zone. So its skill is when I play this, I counterblast 1. I choose one of my units and give it plus 5,000. I'm going to choose Verena to have plus 5,000 till the end of the turn. And then I search my graveyard and I add 1 Verena from my graveyard, or my drop zone, back to my hand. And now, because I have Verena in hand, once again, this order card has now been used and it goes back into the drop zone. We are now going to switch these 2 cards over. You can switch cards up and down, but not left and right. And then we are going to place Verena into OverDress skill once again. And because this is a grade 1, it has the boost skill, which means that it can also boost my rearguard. So with that done, we are now going to declare an attack with Nirvana, and we will use his skill to counterblast 1 and give each of my units with Overdress plus 10,000 power and himself. So this is 23,000 plus 10,000 to both of these. So 23,000 to the opponent's Vanguard.
No guard.
Okay, he's chosen to no guard. Now, if we can get a critical trigger here, then we have potential to win the game. Robert still has 4 cards in hand, and we have 2 attacks left. So, this is where it really comes down to the importance of how well we've played up to this point. So, the first check is a draw trigger. Now, because this one has plus 5,000 and this one is getting boosted for 8,000, they are both almost the same. So whatever one I give 10,000 to doesn't make that much of a difference, but I'm going to choose to give plus 10,000 to this rear guard, and then I get to draw a card. And then the second trigger is no trigger, and that gets added to my hand. So Robert takes 1 damage.
Damage trigger. Check.
And this is no trigger. So we will attack with the smaller one first. So this is 20,000 by his own skill. He gets plus 10,000 off of this, which is 30,000, and then we shall boost for 8. So this is 38,000 to the opponent's Vanguard.
And by paying cost.
Okay, so that is another perfect guard used, which means that Robert only has 2 cards left in hand. And now this Verena, he has plus 10,000 off his own effect, plus 10,000 off Nirvana's effect, which is 30,000, plus 10,000 off of the draw trigger, which is 40,000, and plus 5,000 off of the order skill. So this is 45,000 to the opponent's Vanguard.
I shall no guard this attack.
And he has to take the damage, and it's not a heal trigger. And because he goes to 6 damage, that is the game.
Yep.
And that is how we win. And I would try and keep cards in hand to preserve for attacks next turn, which I'm not entirely sure if I would have been able to do so, and that's why I tried to push so hard to try and win that turn. Because I could have had the option to try and attack his rear guards and prevent him from getting off attacks next turn, but I felt like it was more important to try and win the game with that match. So, that is how Vanguard Overdress is played. And then once you finish up your game, you look back for your right deck. So we look for the starting Vanguard, the grade 0, the grade 1, grade 2, each of these 4 cards. You put them back into your right deck, and the rest of the cards, they all get shuffled back into your deck, all face down, of course. And then that's you all prepared to play your next game. And that will finish up our tutorial for today. That is how you play Vanguard Overdress. And we will finish up with a third and final question for our last prize. And our third and final question is, from the original Vanguard series, what was the first card that had 11,000 attack, which was in the very second trial deck? And it was the card of that trial deck. If you want a bit more hint, it was for Kagero. And it is a very, very famous card. Used by one of the main protagonists in the Vanguard series. Lewis M, you are not allowed to answer because you have already gained a prize. But if you do want to help someone else get a prize, then you can do that. Lewis M and Silver Skygazer have, of course, already won the prize. This lanyard with the Vanguard symbol in it. The trial deck came with 2 of it, Silver Skygazer says. So the winner will get this lanyard, and of course, this lovely sheet of Overdress stickers, which I think would make any basic deck box look very, very nice. Or as some people in the chat have said, you might want to put them on your Nintendo Switch, or maybe use them for any other purposes. So if anyone is still around, and I saw a few of you in the chat beforehand, then you can answer that question and you can get yourself each of these prizes. Or if there's no takers, then we will take these prizes and we will distribute them in Cerda Cosplay, which is Scotland's home of Vanguard, of course. We have been the main Bush Road shop in Scotland for doing Vanguard for almost 10 years, since it first came out in English. And Vanguard just celebrated its 10th year anniversary in Japanese, but I'm not sure when the English 10th year anniversary is. We will give it just another minute because we're at 48 minutes, so we will go up to 50 minutes, and if no one has answered by 50 minutes, then we will take these prizes and we will give them out in our shop. So 1 minute left to answer what was the first Vanguard card to have 11,000 attack. And it is the main unit of Kai. It looks like there's maybe no takers. Okay. Well, there we have. That was our OverDress demo. And I'm just going to very quickly show the close-up of the QR code. So if you want to check the rules for yourself, you just scan that little QR code and that should help explain anything that you might have. Remember, you can check us out on the Discord in the link below, and we will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.